Robots and humans falling in love, gene editing our pets to glow in the dark, and not to mention cloning animals becoming the new norm. What crossbreed creations will we discover on this list today? Here we are, folks. We are entering the new dark ages of creating robot companions for, to quote, meaningful conversations and intimacy with humans. We all saw this coming. Showcased at Consumer Electronics Show in January of this year, the public got their first introduction to the personal android Aria. Robots like Aria are meant to help not only assist in business environments, however that could help, but also be there for you if you're feeling lonely and looking to enhance your connection. Although she is specifically designed for more emotional interactions with people, they are up for allowing them to be sold as attractions in amusement parks. Is no one else worried about this other than me? If you simply don't like how she looks, you can just rip off her face and change it for another. It's all magnetic anyway. And whichever face you choose also chooses her personality. There are 3 different versions you can buy. One is just a bust-to-head model, another is getting a full body but with very little flexibility, and the last one is the whole shebang, all for a small fee of $175,000 to start. I don't think I'm ready to be a part of a potentially romantic human and robot world. Our domesticated fur babies are starting to glow in the dark, not naturally of course, but in the name of science and for the good of humanity. Scientists in Korea, as well as other countries, started injecting a specific protein that's found in jellyfish into dogs, cats, and even rabbits to see how probable it is for 2 very distinct genomes to merge into one. They named this little guy Ruby, since the fluorescent color they gave off is the color red under ultraviolet light. Surprisingly, a dog genome serves as a great basis when trying to study certain disorders and diseases, some of which include narcolepsy and cancer. By being able to visually see that the transfer of this protein was successful, this brings scientists one step closer into developing certain cells that could then be inserted into humans to help fight off said diseases and disorders. And this type of process is scientifically known as transgenics. They also technically made these puppies through cloning because they couldn't just insert this gene into the mothers. They took a couple of skin cell samples from the dog, did some mixing in a petri dish with it, and then inserted it into a dog embryo with no nucleus, and then placed it into a surrogate mother. Are you brave enough to eat rice that's made out of animals? It's obviously no different than eating regular meat, but rice? There is a huge demand for animal products in our world right now, and with lab-grown meat being an ongoing process to help alleviate that stress, infusing protein into other staple foods might just be the next best thing. One of the researchers on this project, So-Hyun Park, stated, "Imagine obtaining all the nutrients we need from cell-cultured protein rice. Rice already has a high nutrient level, but adding cells from livestock can further boost it." Rice is super porous with a bunch of tiny little scaffolding formations within it, and for muscle, tissue, and organs to grow within a human, we need that exact same foundation. So rice was the perfect subject for this experiment, not to mention the other bits of molecules found within rice that could allow the mutation to really bring out the result the researchers wanted. They first needed to soak the rice in fish gelatin. This helped cells grab hold of the scaffolding better. Then they added in the cow and fat stem cells into the rice, and left it there alone in a petri dish for 11 days. And voila, you have your very own beef rice. The era of cloning animals is a very strange practice, but sometimes it can be used for good. For example, in South Korea, scientists wanted to carry on the legacy of a well-renowned Labrador sniffer dog by the name of Chase. Chase was incredibly skilled in sniffing out any dangerous contraband that made its way across the border, but had sadly retired in 2007. But because of his skill, South Korea really wanted to continue to utilize that. So instead, they decided to clone Chase's cells into 7 other sniffer dogs. These genetically enhanced pups outclassed natural-born sniffers across the country. They developed this specific idea because despite some dogs being bred for tracking down substances, not all of them are able to do the job properly. They're also incredibly expensive to buy, and you're looking to spend around $40,000 to own one of these pooches. In comparison to the cloned sniffer dogs though, these guys are a hefty price of $100,000, but I'm assuming it was much cheaper to just clone one into 7 than buying 7 new highly trained dogs. However, despite them all being genetically identical, each one has their own personality and performance. Some were better at sniffing out substances, and others were better at sniffing out harmful diseases in humans. Mice are going to start talking like people soon. Well, not just yet, but there was a huge breakthrough recently with inserting a specific human gene into mice that is theoretically linked to speech. This single genetic mutation mutation that is said to be within all modern humans, but was surprisingly missing in Neanderthals, is speculated to be the reason why we are able to communicate in different languages. To specifically quote from Nature Communications, mice engineered to carry the human version of this gene produced more complex vocalizations than normal. This gene is called NOVA1, discovered by Robert Darnell, and based on some specific research, shows us that this strand only became apparent in the last 500,000 years. With the good old gene editing tool CRISPR, they modified it to place it into the mice. Newborn mice cried out differently for their mothers, and male mice use a different and more complex tone when trying to call out for mates. This doesn't necessarily prove, though, that NOVA1 is the ultimate language gene here, because there are still a lot more variables that are in this experiment. However, how cool would it be if we got to a point where you could start talking to your dog in English? Cyborg cockroaches. Yes, scientists are combining technology and Madagascar cockroaches for the greater good. You thought they were hard enough to get rid of before? Try this one on for size. Researchers in Japan have come up with this new exciting way to help deal with finding survivors during earthquakes and other natural disasters. Because cockroaches are already so durable and adaptable, it just made sense to use them. They would place these little guys into the rubble, and with all the equipment built onto their creepy little backs, they would control them through this mess and search out any suspecting survivors. The big reason why they chose the Madagascar cockroach was because they can still flip themselves over from off their back if they accidentally rolled over, even if they have the cyborg equipment on them. It's a little vague on how this works. The solar cells that the cockroach have on their bodies somehow power signals that are then sent by the controller to move them where they want to go. I don't really get it, but I'm also not a scientist. The solar cell film on its body is incredibly thin material, specifically about 4 micrometers in width. To put this into perspective, a single strand of your hair is 25 times thicker than this thing. The Iron Age pigs, one of Canada's biggest invasive animal problem. These insane hybrid creations were introduced in this country roughly over 30 years ago, and they originally were supposed to help productivity on farms. The Iron Age pigs are a mix of the wild boar species and a domesticated female hog, resulting in the ultimate working piggy. They were more intelligent, had more size to them, and they handled Canada's unpredictable and crazy weather patterns than the average pig. Yes, this was going to boost not only productivity, but everyone would surely love the meat off this thing, right? Wrong. It didn't sell as well as it should have. People just weren't crazy about it and rather indifferent. And so instead of dealing with them in a more secure and organized way, they let these guys run out into the wild in herds. Their population doubled immensely, and the more they grew in numbers, the more trouble they brought on the wildlife in the area. They went after wild turkeys, game birds, even breaking into farms and messing with their livestock. They're so intelligent, they learned the patterns of the hunters that tried to take them out. These pigs knew where to hide and to stay hidden, and knew where not to travel. Ever thought about owning a cat that's only created in a lab? These guys are known as the Ashera Cat, created in 2006 by a businessman named Simon Brody in his Lifestyle Pets laboratory. They're completely domesticated creatures and 100% sterile, so even if you owned one of these expensive felines, you would never be able to produce kittens from them. Most hybrids that we know of all come out sterile. It's just kind of the way things are right now. For some reason, Brody wanted to make the most expensive and notorious cat in the world, with only 100 of these kitties in existence as of right now. It's also a fairly large cat, standing up to at least 4 feet tall in some cases, which means the pet owners who buy them better have the proper space to house one of these felines. Despite being a very luxurious animal, they are extremely low maintenance. They are very solitary in their adult years, but as kittens, they will develop a strong bond with their owners. Right now in progress, there are 4 versions of these cats that have been created. The majestic snow Ashera Cat, the common Ashera Cat that was the first to ever be created, the hypoallergenic Ashera for those who are highly allergic, and the absolute top creation being the royal Ashera. Want one? It's only a small starting payment of $96,000. Do you know any hybrid crossbreed experiments? Let me know down below, and I'll be sure to talk about them in the next video.